another podcast video for you guys. We're going to be recapping the last few weeks since we didn't get to, kind of sit down with you guys and talk about the last few weeks, what happened with the Bears, and obviously what happened today, Friday, Black Friday. Bears firing head coach Matt Eberflus a few hours ago, right the day after Thanksgiving. Little rough, obviously, on his end, but it was expecting. It has not happened yet in the Bear. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It has not happened yet in the franchise of the Bears history where they fire a head coach in the middle season. But we'll get to that a little bit later after we recap recap the games the last few weeks. My name's Tyler. I'm joined alongside.
Hey, it's Daniel, y'all.
What's
good
up,
to
man?
Be back. It's fantastic. I mean, so
good Thanksgiving, man.
Was great. Thanksgiving was great. We apologize to everyone for not being here the last few weeks.
Yeah.
As you can tell, work comes first, right? So, we enjoy the jobs that we have currently, and so that usually comes first. Podcast usually comes second, and unfortunately, in these last 2 weeks, it was just a bit too hectic to try to figure out a time. So we apologize for you guys, but we're hoping that everyone's tuning in today. As you can tell, Black Friday. What kind of a Black Friday deal we got this morning, Tyler? We woke up bright and early. We waited. Unfortunately, we couldn't find anything early in this morning. But as time went on, we waited until around noon. And noon, we got some wonderful news on the best deal of the season so far that we've gotten. And I say that of the season because we've waited. I think since week 5, I've been pretty concerned with the coaching ability of Matt Eberflus. And so I was ready for him to immediately be out of the office. But it's pretty exciting. And my Thanksgiving went well. I had really good food, watched the Bears game, and unfortunate for the Bears loss, but it still was a wonderful game. I love watching Caleb. This is the first, loss that we've experienced in a while on Thanksgiving. Usually we're pretty good at beating teams on Thanksgiving, but otherwise, how was your Thanksgiving, bud?
Dude, great Thanksgiving, man. I was really excited to, one of our buddies, I was hanging out with him before the bar, and he told me before Thanksgiving, he does not eat at all the whole entire day. Doesn't eat breakfast, doesn't eat lunch until dinner. You know what? I decided to do that yesterday too for Thanksgiving. I decided this might be a cool trip. Starve yourself until Thanksgiving dinner. But I might keep that tradition. It was kind of a little weird fun. Tradition, but it was fun, I got munched about 2 plates of food, which I was super happy about. Other than that, I kind of just before getting into the Bears, what is your favorite Thanksgiving side or dish or whatever?
That's a really good idea. So usually it was always stuffing. I'm a big stuffing guy. I love stuffing. I love cornbread. But recently, I think my new favorite has become crunchy green beans. Green bean casserole.
Ooh, the green beans. Okay.
Ooh, yeah, some crunchy onions.
It's an underrated one, man.
That's a very underrated one. Really. And there was actually, yesterday we had someone from Texas show up. That's part of the family. And he introduced us to a new thing that people in Texas eat for Thanksgiving. It is cranberry vanilla ice. And you're supposed to eat it. To me. Okay. You're supposed to eat it after every separate little dish. So if you have a bite of turkey, you eat the cranberry vanilla ice, or cranberry Italian ice or something like that, and then it cleanses your palate, and then you immediately go to the next food item. So it's meant for you to not taste everything single meal at once, which I'm a fan of, right? I'm a fan of.
Did it work? Did it work?
It did work. It did work. And so that's the one thing, learning something new about some people coming from other states here. Like that's something that is normal for him. That's the way that his family celebrates it. And so pretty interesting. I don't know if I'll be trying it again, but definitely the only new thing that I've gotten experience wise. But Tyler, I'm dying to hear what's your favet. We've talked about this every year.
Dude,
we grew up together. So what's changed?
Dude, every year it changes, man. Like some years I'm like, yeah, it's the mashed potatoes. Some years I'm like, I kind of like the turkey. Dude, the last year or so, I think stuffing's got to be my favorite, man. There's some about the stuffing.
Crazy, yeah.
My mom makes the White Castle stuffing. It's just, it's so easy to make too. You just, ground up a little bit of, cheeseburger or the White Castle cheeseburgers and stuff. But stuffing's got to be my favorite, man. And I said, it was a great Thanksgiving. Got to spend time with the family. Got to spend time with my girlfriend's side of the family too for a little bit, which was really nice. But you know what? I love getting together with the family. watching football. Here's the thing. We'll get right into the Bears game in a few minutes, but it was a positive Bears game for the Bears. In my opinion, it was a positive. Obviously, they lost. The Lions were a really good team. They're Super Bowl contending team, but it was the first half of that game was very ugly. Very ugly. I thought we were going to be okay, Matt Eberflus get fired at halftime. And, you saw my quote, what he said, it's going to get going in the second half. And you know what? It did get going in the second half.
It did.
But
I give it more to Thomas Brown than I do to Eberflus for the reason why I got going. Yeah. And again, the Bears, first 2 quarters, 2 completions. It was the lowest completions in a football game on Thanksgiving in history.
Yeah.
So it was like probably one of the worst first half experiences as an NFL fan. So it was pretty bad football. And I will say, I think the game still ended up being the best Thanksgiving game. I don't know if the Cowboys Giants or the Lions Dolphins kind of matched the intensity or how fun it was. It just sucked for the way that the game ended for the Bears here. And we'll get into the information. Again, we're going to talk about the last 3 games. As you can tell, these last 3 games have been some of the hardest games that we've played this season, but not hard in terms of we're playing really good teams, because that didn't show up. Bears played really well against these really good teams.
They did.
We matched up pretty darn well. More so hard in the aspect of just tough losses. Every single loss came down to the last minute or 30 seconds, and we have no one else to blame but the coaching, because Caleb has just been phenomenal.
Dude,
but how about...
Yeah, kind of going into it, but Caleb, like, for the second or third time, has led a quote-unquote game-winning drive, for the Bears. And that's promising. We didn't get to see that out of Fields. We didn't see that out of Trubisky. There's barely any game-winning drives. So I think Trubisky did it once or twice maybe. But Caleb Williams in his rookie year already led a quote-unquote game-winning drive. But coaching, kind of, screwed him over a little bit. But we'll kind of get into that. But, just kind of wrap it up on Thanksgiving. It was nice to see the Bears on Thanksgiving for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah.
Even though they did lose, it was really nice, to watch it in the morning. Didn't have to be anywhere for, family stuff until the afternoon. So I got to just relax, drink a coffee, watch the Bears game in the morning. And, it was a fun Bears game. We'll get into it in a little bit, but there's promising signs for the Bears. Obviously, your head coach just getting fired today. We'll kind of dive into that, but let's just get right to it, man. Let's just get right to kind of the recap in the last few weeks for the Bears. We're going to kind of brush over everything. Obviously, it's been 3 weeks. We're not going to go really into detail over everything. We're just kind of brush over the stats of some of the players, how Caleb did, why they lost the game, and so let's get right to it. Week 11, man. You want to start us off, dude?
Yeah. So a few things to note on before we get into any sort of stats here.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Eberflus, right? Eberflus got fired this morning. We're talking morning of week 14, right before the end of week 13, technically, after the Thursday night games. It is Friday. Eberflus fired after a 14-32 record in 3 seasons. He was the 221st winningest coach of all time, which is near the bottom, very much near the bottom.
Sounds like
he is the worst record by any coach with at least 20 one-score games in NFL history. So if Eberflus had a one-score game, or if he was down at halftime, it was usually a loss. Again, for the 0-18 record on away games on Sunday, pretty bad on his part. Yeah. So he's out of the picture. Thomas Brown is the new interim head coach, and I like that idea just because it gives him a little bit of an identity to either go on and find his own position after this coaching-wise, or to see if he's going to stick around for the Bears job. But other than that, Bears have officially a new rookie QB passing record. So at the beginning of the year, Tyler, we're talking about how important it is for not Caleb to be the best QB in the draft, best QB in the NFL, best QB for the Bears. And that's exactly what he's doing.
Very important, man. Number one overall pick. That's like a number one thing. You gotta be like the best player. It's hard to be, one of the best quarterbacks coming in as a rookie, but obviously the Bears with their stats as like a rookie quarterback, they have not been great. And if Caleb could not, potentially exceed those stats, we might, obviously coaching did, screw up a few things for him, but obviously his stats, his passing and stuff like that, with the Shane Waldron era and stuff like that, he could be up a little bit higher if Shane Waldron didn't call the plays that he did at the time. Look at Thomas Brown the last few weeks. We'll get into it, but he's doing much better with Tom. Yeah.
Playing incredible. But the rookie passing QB record is owned by Caleb Williams at the moment, like we just mentioned. The original record was owned by Mitchell Trubisky in his 2017 rookie season with 2,193 yards. Caleb's officially passed that. That happened last week. So Caleb's, I believe, at 2,600 passing yards. And there's 4 or 5 games left. Like he could break that record by at least 1,000 yards, and that's awesome to see. That would immediately put him at top 5 all time for best QBs when it comes to passing, especially in his rookie season.
Yeah.
And so moving on to another Caleb record, we're bringing these up because these are actually pretty important for the way that we like to think of the way the team is looking, even though we are 4-8. Caleb broke the record for most rookie completions without an interception, passing C.J. Stroud, which I think was number 3 when he broke that record. I forgot who number 2 was. But with 212 attempts, Caleb broke the rookie record for most completions. And as most people noted, usually the player who broke that record in their rookie season ended up winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. So we'll see how many games, with the games that Caleb has left, how he can progress to that. But on the defensive end of the ball, here's an NFL history stat. Tremaine Edmunds becomes the youngest player in NFL history to play 100 games.
That's cool, man.
Huge milestone.
Yeah.
Big milestone, especially big for the Bears. This is, again, being a team that prides itself on defense. This is a guy who has contributed. And I don't know how old you guys think I am. Tremaine Edmunds is my age. Tremaine Edmunds is it's terrifying to think that this guy is my age. Even there might be an opportunity where I even might be older than him. And he already has played 100 NFL career games. Props to you, man. That's
Roquan Smith's replacement, on the team. Obviously, we let him go to Baltimore, and then the Bears picked him up from the Bills, signed him that extension. We got a decent deal on him. He was doing pretty well, good for Tremaine Edmunds. He's basically the leader in the defense. He's the guy who calls the shots. He tells everybody where to move and stuff like that. He has only improved. I know, obviously, right when he got here, he was a little shaky. New defense scheme. It's all new players and stuff like that. He's also, he was kind of coaching a lot of younger players when he first came to this team. Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, younger players that are still trying to learn the the NFL style of the game. But great for Tremaine Edmunds. He deserves it. He's been doing much better. He had I think he had an interception already this year. It was a red zone interception, I believe.
Yeah, it was. It was with Anthony Richardson.
Yep. It was a bad pass by Anthony Richardson, but a great catch by Tremaine Edmunds. But good for Edmunds, man. It's awesome to hear. But yeah, super cool stat.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of changes in these last 3 weeks. We wish we could have brought them to you a little bit earlier, but still, changes are coming. Bears are playing well, and records and stats are being broken.
Yep.
But what are these 3 teams that we played? Obviously, all division games. All
3 division games in a row, man. Are there any other teams that have had 3 division games in a row? I got to look that up.
I'm not sure. And it's crazy that these 3 games were probably some of our better ones of the season. Unfortunately, we'll go through it.
And think about starting with the Packers. That was a brand new offensive coordinator starting with the Packers, I believe. Or was it the week before?
Yes, it was his first game. Yeah,
first game was against the Packers. So obviously that was a big thing for Thomas Brown, seeing what he would do. And starting with them, he looked very good for offensive coordinator. And then the Vikings, the week after, and then yesterday with the Thanksgiving Day game. Yeah, so like we said, we won't dive deep into each of the games just because they were a few weeks ago, but we'll kind of just brush over the key stats of what happened. The game against the Packers, obviously, if you guys are any Bears fans whatsoever, you know what happened at the end of that game. We lost on a blocked field goal by Cairo Santos. It was like a 46-yard field goal or something like that. 46. Matt Eberflus decided to, settle where he was at on the right hash, and I think Cairo Santos kissed from the left hash.
We had another down, right? It was 3rd down with 45 seconds left on the clock, and he decided to run the clock down on 3rd down instead of one more rush that either could have been a negative play or it could have been a positive play. You always want to take advantage of the time on the clock and the plays that you have available.
Yep.
He easily could have done it. We could have got 5 yards. Even in a perfect world, we would have gotten a first down. It would be the 30-yard line. But yeah, that was a bad loss. Caleb played really well, so that was the one thing in this first game. This was first game with interim head coach Thomas Brown as calling lead play caller, and he played really well. So he helped us out a lot. Caleb felt comfortable in the pocket.
Everybody got involved, man. Everybody got involved with this offense. It was obviously before with Shane Waldron, we only saw DJ Moore being involved. And if you see one player being involved, it's very easy for the defense. Double team them. Double team that player, and they're not going to get the ball. Cole Kmet wasn't getting anything. Keenan Allen was barely getting any passes. Rome was not even being, except some of the weeks Rome was being targeted a little bit more. But, first week with Thomas Brown, finally picking out that the Bears have the weapons. And, I'm really excited. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I'm really excited to see what he's going to do in the head coaching thing. It's going to be hard for him to step in those shoes, the head coaching shoes from offensive coordinator, head coach. But I feel like a lot of people on this staff are going to help him out a lot and give him, it's, being a head coach, it's a lot of heads, kind of talking about, what to do, call a timeout here, call a timeout there, but it's all up basically to the quarterback or either the head coach to call that timeout, if the timeout is needed or, challenge flag. Eberflus did not win a challenge this year, but it's, yeah. So basically, the Packers, that game, black field goal, that was here we go. we're putting the hands up. Bad coaching. That's one bad coaching.
Bad coaching. Yeah.
Now going into the Vikings loss, but kind of basically, what we'll get into the stats obviously after, but the Vikings, we lost to them in overtime. That was a crazy game. I remember, I thought the game was actually pretty much over. Kind of was like, you know what, gonna get some things done around the house. And all of a sudden I looked at my phone and I saw, oh, they got the ball back. I thought the game was pretty much over. Forced overtime. Caleb unfortunately was unable to, we got the ball, unable to get, anything going. Vikings marched down the field, kick a field goal to win the game. So they lost 30-27. No, technically the Bears could have won that game.
Technically, yes.
If we did not go for a 2-point conversion and we failed on that and we went for a extra point earlier in the game. That would have been
a 1 point. Was a blocked field goal too.
There was a blocked field goal. Yep. Can you blame Eberflus for that? Yeah, a little bit, but that's a little bit of special teams coordinator as well.
Yeah, I mean coaching. So even
that's coaching.
Team,
yeah,
right? The
overall
team
coaching.
Has, that was a really good game. Again, both these teams against the Packers more so than the Vikings. The Packers, we looked like the better team. In Minnesota, we looked bad, but in the second half, we came back with flying. Like he was whipping it. So Caleb Williams will go to the stats later, but he had his most passing yards as a QB this week. He absolutely slaying the ball. DJ Moore was playing really well. Keenan Allen was playing really well. Everyone was being a part of this offense. Cole Kmet had one of his better games of the season. It was just impressive the way Caleb, that last throw, if there's any play that we should go through, it was that last throw in end of regulation, right before the end of regulation, that got us to a game-time field goal. Big throw to DJ Moore for 40 yards to get us in field goal range. Just amazing plays. Clutch. Caleb Williams is clutch. Even though these games were not winning, he has provided.
He's done what he's needed to do. Exactly. He's done everything he needs to do. Block field goal, not his fault. Obviously the overtime loss, that was, was forced because of an offensive line penalty. That's why we didn't march. But every time there's a penalty, that's always a setback. You know what I mean? With the offensive line, either receiver, going off sides or whatever. But and including the Lions game, bad coaching, not calling the timeout. That's basically 3 games in a row of bad coaching. And there's other games earlier in the season we can go back to. If you kind of talk about like how many games we could be at if bad coaching was not involved, we could have a positive record right now, man.
We definitely could. 100%.
We could have won obviously yesterday on Thanksgiving. If we could have gotten anything going in the first half, we held the Lions to barely any points. That's like a powerhouse team, man. And that's, bad coaching for the first half is another reason why. So, some need to change, man. And obviously we'll get into it, but Eberflus did get fired, and the last 3 games, not getting a single win against a division opponent will get you fired, man. It will.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially with the record he had previous 2 years. Yeah, definitely. So let's go through some stats here, Tyler. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm down,
let's just go game by game. Just got to get you guys in a brush up on the idea of how these players performed. I'll start off here with Caleb Williams if you want to take the next one.
Yeah.
So Caleb Williams versus the Packers did 23 of 31 for 231 yards, 74% completion percentage, and he rushed 9 times for 70 yards, his career high. And he was really playing well. He was throwing the ball, good throws in the pocket, really good offensive line work, and then he just rushed the ball really well. He got us multiple 4th downs, 3rd downs with his legs, and it was cool to see him contribute that way.
Yeah, he did really well against the Packers. He knew when to use his legs. He wasn't forcing to use his legs. I'm not comparing, obviously Justin Fields used his legs a lot more than Caleb because he is more of a rushing quarterback, but Caleb knew when to use his legs when possible. Obviously, there's a few times where, he did get tackled before the first down, but at least he's trying, man. And he's not scared to, run with the ball. He's a tough kid, man. He takes some hits. Obviously, we'll get into the Lions stats, but we did see a hit from him yesterday where I was watching one of my buddies and I was like, I looked like he might have, tore his ACL, he bent it back weird and good. He's a tough kid, man. So with the Vikings game, he went 32 of 47. So that's a really good passing rate. 340 yards. That was the most yards by a quarterback in week 12. So good for Caleb. Very, progressing in the right direction. 68% completion. He had 2 touchdowns that game, and he rushed 6 times that game for 33 yards. So another positive game for Caleb Williams. That's all we could ask out of him. Getting those wins. He did what he could to get the wins, but things obviously did not line up in the right way for the Bears to get those wins. And Dan, you want to take the line stats for me?
Sure. So for the Lions, was probably his worst completion percentage throughout these last couple of games. But again, it was a really good defense, and he did only complete 2 passes in the first 2 quarters. He went 20 of 39 for 256 yards, 51.3% completion percentage, which could be a little bit better. But again, that first half, 3 touchdowns, and then he rushed 4 times for 39 yards. We're seeing some good repetition here from his rushing, right? Even though he's not rushing a lot, he's getting 30 yards, which those 30 yards is going to be another first down. It's going to be a 4th and 1, things like that. So typical rushing you wouldn't see from a lot of quarterbacks, but just enough to where it helps us get into the red zone, helps us get more field goals. It's all about scoring drives. So we love seeing that, and I think Caleb has played outstanding these last 3 weeks.
I agree.
And you got to thank Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown's the big idea. I love what Keenan Allen said regarding Coach Eberflus. He said in an interview last night that we did everything we could as players to win the game, which says, look at Caleb. Caleb is throwing insane balls. He's playing the best quarterback I've ever watched for Bears in my career. Like, he's making insane throws. Players are making insane catches. But yet we lose on the stupidest terms. But
what can you do?
But going on to DeAndre Swift here. DeAndre Swift has been in a bit of a slump. He hasn't had 100 yards rushing in a few weeks now. But versus the Packers, he had 14 carries for 71 yards and a touchdown. He had a really good 30-yard touchdown drive in the right before the red zone there. He had 2 catches for 13 yards also against the Packers. Vikings, here's where it got a little bit difficult. 15 carries for 30 yards only. 3 catches for 35 yards. Incredible rush defense, but definitely that's the game where Caleb, kind of rushed his heart out, and he played really, really well there too. And then the Lions, 11 carries only for 39 yards, 2 catches for 25 yards. He's getting more involved in the passing game, which is good.
Yeah. So Swift, a little bit of a slump right now, but that's when Caleb got that, like you said, got that passing game going, got the rush game going a little bit, using the legs when he needed to. And that's why we're seeing higher yards from him the last few weeks with passing yards. 100%. But kind of going into the next player just real quick, DJ Moore. How's DJ Moore been the last few weeks? Packers game, he went 7 for 7 for 62 yards. So very efficient. Caught every pass coming his way and everything like that. He did have 1 rush for 5 yards that game, so it was a little sweep route. The Vikings, he had 7 catches for 106 yards. And then he had a 13-yard rush as well. They always get him like one play, where he kind of rushes the ball because he's fast, And he got a touchdown that game. So good for DJ Moore. It was a late-time touchdown, kind of wide open on that pass. And then Lions game yesterday, 97 yards on 8 catches for a touchdown as well. So it was a beautiful thrown ball by Caleb yesterday. It was the defender was coming right at him. Like, he flicked his wrist. It was a beautiful.
He was like on one leg too. Like he was like on only on his left leg. And that was 16 targets against the Lions for DJ Moore. Yeah, which is impressive. 16 targets.
He needs to be targeted many times, man. Obviously, we got other weapons too. We got Keenan Allen, which we'll get into. We got Rome, but he should be our number 1 target, and clearly Thomas Brown realizes that. Yeah. So that's a good side.
And then going into Cole Kmet here. So Cole Kmet's definitely not as incorporated as we thought he was going to be with Thomas Brown leading the offense, but Packers 3 for 3 for 42, Vikings 7 for 10 for 64 yards, and then Lions again 3 for 3 for 26 yards. He's not going crazy on the yardage, but every pass that he's catching is a big pass. It's a third down catch or a catch to get us into the red zone. He does most of his work in the second, third quarter. Usually in the fourth quarter, he's not that open all the time, but he's a big body, and in the second, third quarter, he's getting those catches. So. Again, not anything impressive, but from our tight end, definitely expectations can be a little bit higher, but he's still playing really, really well. Here's a player that my expectations have risen a little bit. I'm looking at Keenan Allen here, and I'm thinking to myself, he might be perfect. He might get himself another 1-year deal in the Bears here, because he might have that perfect connection with Caleb Williams that we don't know if we want to reach out for and find another wide receiver and pay them the money if Keenan Allen already has this reputation of the way he plays with them. And I'll go through the first game here. First game against the Packers, 4 catches on 8 targets for 41 yards. Not that involved, but again, he had a couple drops there, so he definitely wasn't a territory where he was mainly just disrupting his own contribution to the team. He was dropping a lot of balls. Vikings went off. 9 catches, 15 targets, 86 yards and a touchdown. That is the Keenan Allen that I know, right? The San Diego Charger Keenan Allen. That's the Keenan Allen that I remember watching as a child. Those are usually the stat lines that he would always get. If you played against him in fantasy, you would hate it because he's getting 10 catches every game. And then the Lions was probably one of his more impressive games of the season. It reminds me a lot of the Jaguars game. So against the Lions, he had 5 catches for 8 targets for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both touchdowns immediately zipped to him. He was the first option on both those reads. Immediately just zipped to him, Caleb Williams. So Awesome
It was
play for
great for Keenan Allen. Last 3 weeks have been, obviously beginning of the season, everybody was like, is Keenan, going to be that player for the Bears? And he's becoming that player, alongside DJ Moore and Rome. We'll get into Rome in a second, but Keenan Allen the last few weeks has been very impressive in my eyes. He really has.
Yeah. Totally.
Kind of going to the last few players, Rome during the Packers had 65 yards on 6 catches. Vikings didn't do too well. He did have 5 catches on 39 yards. And then the Lions yesterday, this was a bad beat by me. I had a whole entire Bears parlay. I needed Rome 3 catches, man. That was the final thing I needed.
2 catches,
and he got 2 catches. 2 catches for 25 yards. Bad beat by Tyler. I had all the other 7 legs go for me, but Rome only getting 2 catches.
So, yeah, let's just look at it this way. I mean, Rome is typical third option.
Yep.
Very typical third option. He's even might be the 4th option if you're calling Komet or DeAndre Swift there. He is getting a lot of good targets, though, right? Those targets that you're seeing, again, as same thing as Cole Komet, like they're always a 3rd down target because I think Caleb Williams trusts this guy, Rome. And let's go through this. The targets that he's getting, 10 targets versus the Packers, 10 targets versus the Vikings, 6 targets versus the Lions. That's good enough wide receiver 2 numbers. Like if he's catching more targets, those are really good numbers for a Bears wide receiver 3. So I think it's a little bit on the whole of him being a rookie, getting the same page as Caleb, but so far so good. I mean, I'm pretty happy with him getting 6 catches on 10 targets a game. I think that's beautiful.
I agree, man. Yeah, kind of just, brushing over, the defense on what they did the last 3 games since we were with you guys. Terrell Smith had an interception in one of the games. DeMarcus Walker had a sack. And TJ Edwards had 5 tackles against the Packers. And then against the Vikings, we had Jonathan Owens had a goal line forced fumble. Amazing play by Jonathan Owens. That would obviously easy touchdown for Aaron Jones. Fumbled right at the goal line. Beautiful play by him. Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker, and Jake Martin had a sack that game. And then Kevin Byard had a great game with 11 tackles. So, offseason signing from the Eagles. Then kind of just going into the Lions game yesterday on Thanksgiving for the defense, Tyreek Stevenson had a forced red zone fumble. Great play by him. That I kept rewatching that tackle. Man. That tackle was awesome, man. It just came out of nowhere, and I'm surprised he didn't get hurt, man. But Javon Dexter had a sack yesterday. Jack Sanborn and Austin Booker each had a half sack, and then TJ Edwards had 6 tackles yesterday. He had a great game. And then kind of just going over the last few weeks for special teams, Cairo Santos had 2 blocked field goals, one of them for a game-losing field goal. The other one was, in the middle of the game against the Vikings. And then he had the game, redemption, that game-tying field goal in overtime, or to force overtime against the Vikings. So good for Cairo Santos, getting back on the groove for him. But yeah, kind of just going into what we're going to be wrapping into next. Obviously, breaking news about 3 hours ago. Since Thomas Brown became the offensive coordinator, Danny, how have you seen this offense? What do you think about it? Better.
I look at it very similar to the way things were last season when Justin Fields all of a sudden didn't have Eberflus calling the plays. Yeah. He had someone else calling the plays for him. I think that made things a little bit easier on his end, and we started seeing this Bears offense come to life. I'm seeing the exact same thing this season, which you could call worrisome, but I look at it as a positive note just because now, with Thomas Brown being the head coach, this is the first time we've had a very good offensive-minded head coach since Matt Nagy, and Matt Nagy also kind of put a lot of positives on defense, not a lot on offense, being an offensive-minded coach. So now it's going to be a little bit different. I think the defensive, coach is definitely going to take his fair share of trying to lead the defense the rest of the way. Yeah. But Caleb and Brown are cooking. Caleb and Thomas Brown are the match made in heaven that we wanted midway through the season. I'm not saying that this is someone that I would have chose before we knew who Thomas Brown was or Caleb if we were drafting Caleb. But it's a match made in heaven for someone who's an interim head coach, who is, again, the QB coach. This guy's playing out of his mind. These 3 games that we had in our division could have all been wins. You know how much different this season would sound if the Bears all of a sudden were the only team to beat all 3 teams in our division at least once. We're playing everyone again. Yeah. But that would be an impressive stat line. And if Thomas Brown can have an opportunity to play all 3 of these teams again, put up wins, that would be incredible. Another positive is Caleb's rushing. They're giving him a lot more opportunity not to go out and find his own, or not to go out and give him a dedicated rush, like just kind of like, hey, like we're going to do a run play. No, they're letting him decide with his own legs when he should run. And He's been incredible in the pocket. The pocket's staying stiff for him, and he's really making good decisions. There's a play against Minnesota where he juked left. Again, guy right in front of him, juked left, juke right. Saw a guy laying on the floor. there's a Vikings defender laying on the just straight up like this. He hopped over him, ran it for the 4th down. Incredible play. Those are winning plays. Those are plays that you don't see from a lot of QBs. And when you do see it from a QB, Sports Center's over here talking about it on Sports Center Top 10. Like, those are the kind of plays you want to see.
Exactly.
What else do you think? What do you got over here? I think Caleb for me is the big positive that I'm seeing from Thomas Brown.
Caleb has to be, the big positive, and obviously, seeing Thomas Brown becoming the offensive coordinator 3 weeks ago. Obviously we weren't with you guys, just recapping those other games, but just like I said before, the target share with all these wide receivers is the biggest positive for me. Seeing Cole Kmet involved, seeing Keenan Allen, DJ Moore finally getting like the massive target share that he needs. Letting Caleb be Caleb. That is like the key thing for him. And it's been, very, very successful for the Bears the last 3 weeks. Obviously they weren't wins. Coaching kind of, screwed that up, but Caleb has been looking great. And I've been really happy with Thomas Brown as the offensive coordinator. Obviously we'll get into it. We do have a question in the chat from Peter C. Peter,
I think it would be this would be a pretty good question to bring up. Question.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty good timing.
Yeah, so he says, "Love the pod, appreciate it, bro. Thanks, man." What are your guys' opinions on the Bears' offseason moves that should players who they should target in the draft potentially? Also, opinions on who the next coaching hire should be. So this is a great question, man. So basically, players to target. Obviously, what I saw after Thanksgiving, I believe we're sitting at the 12th spot in the draft. Now, I'm not the biggest college football guy. I don't know everything about college football, but I know there's some key pieces that the Bears need, and that is offensive line. Just give me the best offensive line that falls to us at at pick 12 in the draft. See what other picks we get, after, if what happens with Justin Fields. If he's going to play more snaps, it's not looking likely that way for him. If we get that 4th round pick instead of that 6th round pick from the Steelers. But, offensive line has to be the key target in the draft for me. Has to be the key target because, it's looked better the last few weeks, but as soon as one player gets banged up, like Braxton Jones or Tevin Jenkins goes down for a few plays, we notice that offensive line breaks down pretty hard. Other teams, on the other hand, as soon as, a player potentially goes down, we're seeing that depth on these other teams become pretty well. And I'm not saying that these players in the draft have to be the immediate starter, but we need depth. We need depth on the offensive line because clearly we saw what depth got us, a few weeks ago when we released Nate Davis. He was absolutely terrible with the Bears, but that's why I think the Bears need a target in the draft. Offensive line has to be number one. Obviously the reason why we did not target offensive line in this year's draft with Rome Odunze is because we didn't know what was going to happen with Keenan Allen. We didn't know if he's going to get hurt week 2, tear his ACL just because of his, his age. And then that's why we picked up Rome, is he's basically going to be the next wide receiver 2 for Caleb if something were to happen to Keenan Allen. We'll see what happens with Keenan Allen in the offseason. But I do expect the Bears to re-sign Keenan Allen. Let's see how this year plays out. Keenan did say before the season that he is not looking for Jamar Chase numbers. He's not, obviously, of his age. He's not looking for that kind of contract. Maybe he'll take a pay cut just to stay with the Bears because he's a little fired up about what happened during this season. But sorry, talking a lot, Dan, but what do you got on this, man?
Perfectly well said. And I have to agree with a lot of things you mentioned.
And then we'll get into the coaching hire question after you kind of discuss
we have
the
a
draft.
list here of a lot of the options that people have been given us for coaching candidates. But yes, I agree with you. I think when it comes to changes, I think the offseason is mainly going to be draft oriented. I look at the way the Bears are built, and I do think offensive line is a great opportunity to try to sign somebody. But I do think if we get a top 10 lottery pick, I think there's only 2 offensive linemen that I've seen that are worthy of being in the top 10 or even in the first round. I do think this could be a defensive line draft for the Bears here. If whatever first pick that we get in the top 10, I think it's easily could be a defensive lineman.
People were riot, man, if we went defensive line. I could see it though too, but you understand how Chicago fans are. We've seen how Caleb has gotten knocked these last few weeks, but if the Bears do, obviously if the player's not there for the Bears, and we'll see, if Poles is going to be, the general manager for the draft, but it looks like he will be. But dude, Bears fans are going to riot if we don't go offensive line, but you got to go with the best player that is at the board. You know what I mean? You can't just reach for a 2nd round offensive lineman if they're not going to do it. Cause then, we know how Bears fans are. They're going to be mad at either way about that. So
It all depends on value. So value for me is a big deal. I looked at a lot of the offensive linemen from last year's draft that was drafted in the first round, and they're struggling. They're not having a fantastic season. I mean, I think there's one or two of them that are handful of full-time starters.
Yeah.
The rest of them are kind of going in and out. I also look at the way that Pittsburgh drafted in the 3rd and 4th round. They got 2 offensive linemen, and they're full-time starters. They're some of the best, and they're playing really well. Their rushing is going good. Protecting the pocket has never been better than with Russell or Justin, rather than like Kenny Pickett. They're definitely looking really good. So I think I see the way the Bears are built, and I see definitely best player available. And for some reason, I have this itch that best player available is going to be defensive lineman. And
I could see
offensive line is struggle, but at the end of the day, offensive line will be built. Offensive line will have changes done. I wouldn't mind going out and paying for an offensive lineman rather than a defensive lineman. It's kind of also the way I'm thinking.
Yeah.
If we go out and pay for a defensive lineman, it's going to cost us a little bit more rather than a sturdy offensive lineman. So I do think in the draft, we'll go D-line, O-line, and then a couple, fill in a couple holes there. When it comes to Keenan Allen's situation, I love the way Keenan Allen is playing right now. I don't think at his age he's going to want to go out and play for another receiver. Let's say it's going to be like the Titans, or it's going to be like the Bucks, or it's going to be just some other random team that he's going to have to go build his chemistry with again, knowing that he doesn't have more than two seasons left. I can see us reaching a 1 or 2 year deal with Keenan Allen still.
I think the Bears are his last stop in his career. That's what I think.
So too. I think so too. This last 2 weeks, he's kind of proved that he is, as much as DJ Moore's playing out of his mind, he's the number 1 safety blanket for Caleb. And Caleb is going to want him throughout the first few years of his career, especially next season. I don't think Keenan Allen is looking at this Bears team as like, okay, we're going to go downward. I think he's looking at it as like, well, the only way to go is up. We won 4 games this year, then it's only a matter of time before we win 8 next season. So I think he comes back. I say that because I don't want to go out and pay a Chris Godwin, or I don't want to go out and pay a T. Higgins for the kind of money that they're looking for.
Exactly.
Just because we have Rome back there. Rome is playing on a rookie deal still. We want him to have just as many targets as Keenan Allen, especially next season. So I do think we stick with Keenan Allen. I hope he does come back.
I agree, man.
Coaches, we'll go into some coaches here, but it's definitely going to be a different mindset than it was last year. Bears were very quick to pick their O-line, offensive coordinator, very quick to pick their coach, and we were the first ones to kind of finish that through the offseason process. This year, I think it might be a little bit different. This year, I think everyone is going to be looking at the Bears' job as like, hey, Caleb looks really good. Defense, number 1 red zone defense in the NFL. Why wouldn't I want to take this job? So yeah, I think that's something to look forward to. I really do appreciate the question. It's one of my favorite questions to talk about. Yeah. We go through a lot of the stats, but my favorite questions to answer are the what ifs. So
big
you,
what ifs, man. Yeah. So it's big. Obviously, big what ifs with the Bears. Obviously, before we get into like the new head coaches and like kind of like what player, what offensive coordinators are out there, let's just quickly, dive into what kind of the negatives we've seen with Thomas Brown, and then we'll dive right into, Eberflus getting fired and stuff like that. But obviously, we kind of wrote down here, negative for Thomas Brown since he became, the, offensive coordinator. And this isn't really his, position, is that the final, the last minutes, the win percentage for the Bears were really high, and then we ended up losing the game. That's got to be on head coaching, man. That's not really on him. He got to the point where he needed to on the field, and then all of a sudden, it didn't, click for him. But rush defense has been a little bad, but, that's not his department, man. Defense is not his department. He's offensive coordinator at the moment. We'll see how it is with the head coach when he takes over head coaching. He's going to have a decent while to, figure out this team. We played on Thanksgiving. We have the whole entire weekend. They're going to be with their families and stuff like that. And then we have a whole entire week until we play. We'll discuss on our next podcast. We're playing with the Niners at 3:25, but it's going to be, a week and a half will tell how Thomas Brown's going to be with the head coach. And I feel like players are already reaching out and stuff. And then the big belay throws on the defense. That's another department for him that he's been, that's not obviously his department being an offensive coordinator, but giving up those, that's a Bears thing that's been happening for the last 15 years, man. Aaron Rodgers was doing it with fucking 20 seconds left. And it's just, it's a hard thing to change, but definitely is getting down those little plays. I mean, we could talk about the Noah Brown catch and those kind of plays, but I'm more so thinking of the Jordan Addison 50-yard one-handed grab at the 1 yard line. Like, these kind of plays should definitely be stopped, right? We have pretty good secondary at this time of the season. Everyone's still kind of healthy, coming back. Jaquan's out, but he's tweeting his heart out, which is pretty interesting to see. He's definitely still a fan of the team, which is nice. But yeah, those big plays, those big play throws is something that we need to kind of focus on more. If we're going to say that we have the best cornerback in the league,
We should say that we have the best secondary in the league. How about that? I think that's a little bit more important for me.
Yeah.
But I see Peter mentioned here some names. Now, I have heard of Will Campbell. I have heard him. He has been a stud, and he has a pretty impressive highlight reel that I saw on Twitter one morning. Kelvin Banks, I have not heard of, but feel free to give out any more information, Peter, on what you think would be the better option for you and what you think was a player that you'd want to target. If these are two of the players you want to see.
If it gets slipped to us at number 11 or wherever we're sitting at right now.
If you were to guess, Todd, what picks would you think that we have this season?
I don't know how many more wins we're going to get out of the season, man. So I could see us like sitting where we're at right now. Obviously, we're not the worst team. Yeah. We're not, obviously, clearly we're not the best team, but I could see us right around 10. I think we're going to get like what we had last year, right around 10. Let's see what players slipped. If I look at like, mock drafts right now, looking kind of just, quickly going into it, they're showing that, let's see, the Bears are clearly sitting at, I got it right here. If these ad things don't pop up for me, the Bears are clearly sitting at number 12. And right, like you said, Danny, they got a defensive lineman going to the Bears at number 12 from Michigan, Kenneth Grant.
Kenneth Grant. Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good pickup. I don't know if that's who I'd pick at 12, but I do think I was thinking more 6 to 10 is where I think the Bears land up. And that's if we get 2 more wins at 6 wins. If we have 4 wins, I think that's easily a 6 to 7 pick.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, but yeah, let us know, Peter, what you think is a player that you're targeting. You heard our options here. We'd love some specifics on who you feel would be the best personality to fit as the next pick in the draft after the Bears get Caleb Williams, right? So this would be another high pick. He said, according to Tankathon, Peter has another reply, the Bears hold the 9th overall pick, but that's before Sunday's games. And so the Bears have a couple games left against some pretty tough opponents here. There's a chance we could lose out, right? That's not the term you want to hear. Usually the term is a win out. There's a chance that we could lose out here 4 wins, which would be 3 less wins than we got last season. Not a great expectation, but then you think of the games that we could have won, right? This season could have easily ended with 7 wins. So at the end of the day, all we're doing is getting ourselves a better draft pick. 9th, I'd be happy with. 9th is what we had.
And what I'm seeing right here at 9th is an edge rusher going at number 9 right now from Texas A&M. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now. And before that is a it looks like an offensive tackle from at pick number 8. So if that ends up sliding to the Bears, Will Campbell. That's
Will Campbell.
That's what we're seeing at number 8 right now in the mock drafts. But number 9 would be doable for the Bears. Number 9. As soon as you get to like number 12, that might not be doable. Picking up a decent, offensive tackle or whatever, like you kind of said before. But thanks, Peter. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Kind of just, before we get right into Eberflus and like who the head coaches can kind of be, I know that was a question Peter asked about is who can we see as our head coach? And we have all of the favorites on Bears head coach for you, and we'll discuss that. But just some Bears moves and injuries that we kind of saw in the last 3 weeks. We did see Adrian Colbert, Hard Knocks star, riding the bike and stuff to practice. He ended up coming to the practice squad after Jaquan Brisker got put on IR. And clearly the biggest news of the day and the biggest news of what would happen the last few weeks with Eberflus, as of today, like 3 hours ago, Matt Eberflus fired from the Bears. Peace out. Smell you later. He is gone. So Dweeberflus. I should have put that in the
I should say, I mean, it's pretty obvious that he wasn't the best coach. And pretty obviously he wasn't the best coach to coach an offensive-minded first overall pick QB rookie standout. I think I do want to give Eberflus thanks, though, because at the end of the day, he did hold down the fort as hard as possible. He was hated for 3 seasons. Like, I don't think people enjoyed the way his play style was, the way the defense was even separated. I do appreciate him for that time, because I think that's something it's a lot harder as an individual to kind of go through those moments. He's been, these coaches in Chicago, they got a lot of hate, but he had to do it for 3 seasons in the middle of a half rebuild and a retool and then another rebuild. He's looked okay. He's the press conferences, he hasn't been all that perfect, but I think at the end of the day, he took the coaching seriously and he brought the team out. What breaks my heart the most is Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks is officially ruined for me because he played a big part in Hard Knocks. The interview with him and his wife. And that's over for me because that all of a sudden the coaching and the coaches and the whole team and the whole presence and the whole campaign of what Hard Knocks looked like is over. There's no more of that coaching staff. Those people are going to be gone. It's going to be an entirely new team. So that just sucks because Hard Knocks was such an awesome thing to watch, and now all of a sudden it's going to be tainted by the experience that the coaches, that same coach that was on Hard Knocks was let go 13 weeks later.
Yeah,
and the offensive coordinator, that the majority of the room on offense is gone. So
yeah.
Interesting.
Kind of going back to what we said before, about the draft, Peter did throw a little comment in here saying that, if the Bears pick Kenneth Grant, he'd be upset because we have Pickens, Dexter, and Billings. And I agree, because we do have star players the last few years we did get in the draft. But I agree, target O-line. Personally, take Will Campbell because he's a 4-year starter at left tackle. Peter, I know you know a decent amount about college football. I know you and Cammy's brother Brant watch football, or college football a lot. So Will Campbell, that would be a great pickup, man. I'm going to remember that in my head. Will Campbell for the Bears.
4-year starter left tackle. I do love that idea, and that depends on if Tevin gets his extension or not, which we could talk about in a little bit of later weeks, but I'm personally for the no campaign of Tevin Jenkins getting an extension. I think the injury history is not
That's how I am too.
Great, and I don't want to rely on backups for majority of the season. So
yeah.
I love that comment there. Thank you, Peter, because
that
puts it in both our heads. But let's
and I see you say sorry last comment, Peter. Keep on commenting, man. Please
keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. We're heading to the end of the chat here. So, but let's go over some 2025 coaching Bears
this is going to be fun, man. I'm excited.
I found this and I sent this to Tyler, or maybe he sent it to me when we first saw it. This is via the 33rd team FB for football on X, Twitter, as we usually call it. So if you want to look them up for any more statistics on what they have, they do a very good job presenting everything. So let's go over this. So here is the most updated list. This is before the Flus firing.
It was before the Thanksgiving Day game.
Because Matt Eberflus is still on this list. So let's go over it, Tyler. Here's all I'm going to do is that I'm going to go through the list, and you're going to tell me yay or nay. You're going to tell me yes, I could see it. No, I don't want to see it. Or a C, a magical C option. I better not see it. This is the opposite of what we need.
I like this. All right, man. Let's do it.
All right. So number one option they had listed here, the odds are plus 325. Joe Brady, Bills offensive coordinator. How do we feel?
I could see it, man. I could see it. I could see how he, is developed with Josh Allen and stuff like that. But on my book, not my number one target in my book. That's all I got to say. Joe Brady, I could see it. I would not be mad at the hiring. It's an offensive-minded coach, and that's what the Bears need. No more defensive coordinators becoming head coaches for the Bears. At least, it doesn't pan out that much. Looking at the track history on defensive coordinators becoming head coaches, there's only a few that have done really well. I believe Bill Belichick was one of them. If I recall correctly, Sean Payne was another one. But Joe Brady is obviously the offensive coordinator. I would not be mad if we got Joe Brady. How about you, man? About Joe?
I don't like Joe Brady. I don't like the McDermott coaching tree. I don't think there's been a lot of. I look at DeBall, and I guess he was in a position where he didn't have a lot of opportunity or change. He already got there with a quarterback, but I still think the way that team is coached is very, very traditional in a sense that there isn't a lot of change in culture.
I agree, man.
I wouldn't be happy with Joe Brady. I'd be a lot happier with Thomas Brown staying if we were looking at that position. Next up, number two option with 400 plus 400 odds is Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator. I think this has been the hottest name. If anybody's looking for a new head coach, usually he's going to be the first name on that list just because of the way that he's leading this Lions team a second year in a row with the most prominent offense and just extremely good pieces on offense. Everyone's getting involved. We saw Sewell almost throw a touchdown yesterday, even though he got sacked. Like, he is just coming out with some of these wild plays, and I think he could be a great fit with Caleb. What do you think?
This is my number one pick, man. Ben Johnson has been my number one pick for very long time now. He's been my number one pick before the season, and I really think he can just, like you said, man, watching these trick plays that the Lions can do. They, throwing one offensive lineman, having to pitch back to the wide receiver to throw to, Jared Goff on the left side of the end zone. Look at their rush game. Look at everything. Obviously, the Lions are built to look obviously much better than the Bears right now, but I think Ben Johnson is the best pick that the Bears can do. I think he's better than Thomas Brown at becoming the interim head coach right now. Obviously, he kind of just slid right into position. The last 2 weeks went from offensive coordinator to the head coach. But Ben Johnson, looking at what Caleb kind of can do yesterday on his home field on Thanksgiving, seeing the abilities that he has, I think he is like the best
100%.
choice for the Bears at head coach position at the moment.
I agree. I hear a lot of comparisons between him and Matt Nagy, which is really interesting to think about because Matt Nagy had very similar hype. Again, Matt Nagy came from a winning background, the best offensive play caller. He came from a team that was coaching the best offense in the league. So he definitely has very big similarities to Matt Nagy, and we went down that road. I love Ben Johnson. I do think he's my number one pick, but I'd like to see what Thomas Brown would offer these last couple of weeks before we go out and pay a guy like Ben Johnson, just because Ben Johnson can come in and do a pretty good job, but he still doesn't know the offense as well as a guy like Thomas Brown does. How well can he adjust to the pieces that we have already? I think Ben Johnson wants the job, I think is how I look at it.
Yeah.
I think Ben Johnson, I think he would find it fun to play the Detroit Lions twice a year. I think that's also a opportunity that he wants because he wants to, especially if the Lions do really well this year, he definitely wants to give him a little bit of a punishment, saying like, hey, I'm the best person on the staff. But
here's
number
the
3
thing,
odds.
This is what I see before I kind of wrap into the next guy. If the Lions end up winning the Super Bowl, I see him staying. I see him staying with the team. I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's this time he can branch off, but why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. Like, why would he branch off from a different team? Looking at look at these coaches that stayed with the team because they started winning. Steve Spagnuolo from the Chiefs, defensive coordinator. There was rumors he might become a head coach. He's like, I'm winning. I'll just stay. Yeah. Eric Bieniemy, he stayed for a few more years before he decided to branch off. I really think that that Ben Johnson, if they end up winning, he could stay. But
I love this comment by Peter here. He mentioned only reasonable answer for head coach is Bill Belichick. And I like this answer. I like this answer simply because yesterday at Thanksgiving, I was talking with a lot of family and I said, listen, if you're the Bears, like the worst thing you could do is keep the coach in office the way he's playing. If you wanted to sit here and tell me that you want a better coach and you want someone to literally outcoach this team more than anybody else, you call up Bill Belichick. You said, hey, coach us the rest of the season. You kidding me? He would love to work with Thomas Brown. He is, again, one of the best coaches historically. We're not talking about a person who the players love. He's a good coach. He's tough. He's hard earned, and he's also winning. Right? He's won so many close games with a personality that's similar to Tom Brady and Caleb Williams. Like it's a player that wants to go out and drive and win, and the smallest experiences will teach him so much. So I love that pick. I wouldn't personally go for him in the 2025 season, but if Bears had an opportunity to tell him, hey, come off the couch, come coach the Bears for the last few weeks, get to know Thomas Brown, let us know your thoughts on Thomas Brown, let us know your thoughts on what this team should look like, the same way we did with Hard Knocks and the Bama coach, right? Oh my gosh, why am I missing his name?
Nick Saban.
Yeah, Saban. Dude, like exactly that. Like pick his mind a little bit. Tell me what you think about this team.
Yeah.
Todd, what do you think about Bill Belichick? Is that an answer for you?
Here's the thing, man. I like Bill Belichick. I think he's obviously an amazing coach and stuff like that, but he coached, Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks, sorry about that, to ever basically, walk, for football in the NFL. Tom Brady is a different play style than Caleb Williams. Yeah. Caleb Williams is trying to stick in the pocket as much as he can, but, he needs to roll out or whatever. I do think Bill Belichick is a great offensive mind coach. I think he was the great coach for Tom Brady. Not sure if he'd be the best coach for Caleb Williams. He might kind of put him in his place and be like, you can't do this, you can't do that, which might be great for Caleb. But Caleb isn't making that many mistakes at the moment. He's clearly showing he's a great quarterback, and he, needs to do what he needs to do in order to, win a football game. I do like Bill Belichick, though. I think he's a great option. I would, put him in my list of top 3, not putting him in my top 1. I still think Ben Johnson is, going to be in my top 1, but Bill Belichick is a great, pick by the Bears. If he wasn't,
just to mention, he wasn't on this list. I do not think that he was someone that even a lot of sports books are looking at as becoming a coaching hire. I think he has a little bit of different opportunities, and I think the Bears are looking for someone a little bit more offensive driven rather than Belichick, who's mainly just a coach's guy. Like he is someone that's going to coach the players to where they need to be in the right position, and he's very strict on that. Rather than Ben Johnson is going to give everyone an equal opportunity, which I really enjoy. But going into the next couple here, I'm just going to name them off here. At 600 odds, plus 600, we have Thomas Brown as the next coach, which is third on the list here. Number plus 700, Fourth option here is Aaron Glenn, Lions defensive coordinator.
No more defensive.
Go ahead and say
no more defensive coordinators.
I'll go ahead and say not interested, simply because of the way that the Bears played against them defensively yesterday. I don't think he's showing that much promise, and the Lions have a pretty tough schedule these next few weeks. So I wouldn't lie if I was saying that I don't see them at the top of the NFC. I think the Eagles have a really good chance, especially when they play the Eagles. So there's a lot of players out there, and I think the Lions defensive coordinator is going to have a tough bargain to become a head coach. Plus 700, Liam Cohen, Bucs offensive coordinator. He's definitely a good position. I don't think I want.
I see. I don't know if that'd be such a Bears signing if we picked him up, man. It would be.
He's good. I don't think he's got enough to his pedigree for comparing to Ben Johnson, right? So I don't think there's enough energy for me there. Kellen Moore, former Cowboys offensive coordinator, current Eagles offensive coordinator. Again, I would want Kellen Moore if I had Saquon, but we don't have Saquon. And I think he's definitely a little bit more on the run-heavy side. And I want someone that's going to be a little bit more pass-heavy with a little bit, intricate plays here for the running backs, a good running back room. And then the last one here, I just added this just to before Eberflus got fired at plus 1,600. Matt Eberflus, current coach. That was the odds.
Yeah, for him I think we should pick up Eberflus. Let's see what he can do at head coach.
A young name, right?
Yeah.
Young name, good defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Got a beard, got a grade a little bit, so he might be good at head coach. But yeah,
here's another question we have here.
Ooh, and this is a good question, man.
I will say I think I understand. I will say no, simply because I think is it really going to take so long for Caleb to get acclimated to getting a new coach? We don't have enough of a. I don't think we have enough identity for a new coach to get acclimated to the NFL. And a guy like Chip Kelly, he's had his fair share of NFL games. I still think I want someone that is currently in 2024 leading a good football team. And Ben Johnson, I think, immediately jumps out to me because, again, he's in the NFC North. So he understands what it's like to game plan against the Packers, Minnesota, especially against Chicago. So that gives him a little bit of an edge for me, I think, entirely.
Yeah, seeing like college, coaches come from, we've been seeing a lot of the NFL coaches go to college. Some college coaches that come to the NFL sometimes don't pan out like they kind of do. Looking at Indiana's coach, Indiana just signed a 7-year deal with, I can't think of his name. Oh my gosh. Off the top of my head, I can't think of his name. They make memes about him. Sorelli or something like that. He's doing really well with Indiana, but clearly we saw them lose to Ohio State, which is a great football program right now. Dan Lanning's a great coach for Oregon. I think he's going to stay at Oregon for a decent while. I don't think he's going to come to the NFL. Chip Kelly right now, not my favorite choice. Chip Kelly is not doing good with LSU. Don't bring him to the Bears, in my opinion. That's what I think. We got to stick with NFL coaches for the Bears' sake. We can't pull a leg and try to go with somebody who's in college. That's the way I look at it. Let's just stay with the NFL.
It's
a good idea, though. It's a good idea, but I just don't think for the Bears right now that we go with the college, head coach.
Yeah, I look at it similar to like Cliff Kingsbury. Like, I think he's a very good addition. He's someone that's very smart. He's very positive with the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Dan Lanning.
That's what it is. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. If Dan is open, right? If Dan is open to interviewing, then I would the exact same position as like Jim Harbaugh, right? Jim Harbaugh didn't even get him an interview, didn't get him into the building. He's a former Bears player, so I think he would have the same energy that we want. I'm looking for a player that's going to create this culture. Eberflus, the culture wasn't necessarily there. Defensively, It was there. Offensively, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel what the team was together for. I didn't feel what the main three positives of each game were always going to look like, but it was always felt like defense. And I think that's my biggest worry when it comes to college coach coming into the NFL is that him leading the guys that are already on the roster, they're going to say, it's not that college coaches are a little bit softer, but it's definitely going to be a bit of a change. It's going to take a couple more games than it would for a normal coach to already, come in there. So I think it happens. And I would love to interview with college coaches. And if that just happens to be the route, then that's totally fine with me. I'm not against it. I just want the Bears to be open-minded, and I want Ben Johnson to be number one on the list still.
I agree. That's where I'm at, man.
All right, so we're going to go to one of our favorite parts of the show here. It's actually one of the last few categories we have to talk about. We have a Week 11 Bear Down, Bear Frown that we never got through. So let's.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've been back in a few.
Let me read it out here real quick. This is what we got. We did very, very bad. So week 11 against the Packers, Caleb Williams throws for a touchdown.
Nope.
Didn't happen. Swift gets 100 yards rushing. Didn't happen. Bears get 2 or more sacks. Didn't happen.
I can't believe we didn't get 2 sacks.
Yeah, we only got 1. Bears score 17 points or more. That happened. 19 points against the Packers. Bear down, bear frown, whatever. So we'll get into that next week because we're going to talk about next week's game in next week's podcast. So we'll get you another bear down, bear frown for that. But let's go with this one. Okay, so we're 13 weeks into the season. We're going to do a different edition of bear down, bear frown just to do the last 3 weeks here. It is stat edition. And I'm going to ask you, Tyler, 4 questions. Okay. Through 13 weeks, does ... And you're going to go ahead and answer with me positively, negatively, a simple true or false question. All right. So here's the first one. Let me know if you're ready. I did mention these to him beforehand, so he did have a little bit of time to think about it. But all right. So through 13 weeks, does DJ Moore have over or under 650 yards receiving? No cheating.
I'm going under, man.
He's going under here. Okay, so unfortunately, Tyler, that was incorrect. After this last week, the answer is true. He does have over 650 receiving yards. He's at 663.
Oh, see,
he is leading the team right now.
Okay. If you say 651, I was going to lose my marbles.
All right, next one here. Through 13 weeks, does DeAndre Swift lead the Bears in rushing touchdowns?
I'm going to say yes on this one.
Okay. Unfortunately for you, Tyler, that is false.
Is it Roschon Johnson?
The leader through 13 weeks is Roschon Johnson with 6.
Dude.
Roschon has 6 rushing touchdowns. DeAndre Swift has only 5.
I thought Roschon was at like 4, man. Damn. All right.
He is 1 above.
0 for 2. Right. I'm such a true Bears fan. All right.
Through 13 weeks, does the Bears have over 25 sacks on defense? True
I'm going to say no.
Have over 25? Tyler.
No, dude.
Tyler, you are yet again wrong. You said that they have. You think that they have over 25 sacks? You said. I
said under. No, they don't have 25 sacks.
The Bears. It is true. They do have over 25 sacks on defense. They have 30. Dude. They have 30, which is, I believe,
they haven't had
14.
Any sacks like the last few weeks. That's why I said no.
Which is still midway through it's midway through the entire league. Like we're, I think, 14th or 15th of the season. So 0 for 3, Tyler, and I'm very sorry about that. But here's 25. The last one here. Here's the last one.
All the marbles. Let's see.
I really like this game. If you want to come up with some for next week, that would be fun too. So here's the last one. Through 13 weeks, does Caleb Williams lead the team in yards per carry?
Yes.
That is correct. Ding, 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 ding. That is true. Caleb Williams is the Bears' leading rusher for yards per carry at 6.4. Do you want to guess who's number 2 on the Bears? This season, who is number 2 for yards per carry? He could be on the roster or off the roster. You don't know. Who is number 2?
Oh, now you said off the roster. Who's off the roster that... Dude, throwing one out there. This is a bad guess, but is it DJ Moore?
That is incorrect. That is incorrect. Number 2 is Velus Jones.
Oh, get that. No.
With 5.5 yards per carry on the season. He is number 2. He is in front of DeAndre, Roschon, DJ. Give it Travis Homer. Give it whoever you want. Velus Jones is number 2.
Oh, my God.
So there are the 4 stat edition bear down or bear frowns.
For Tyler. Let's
25%.
go.
I love the last one. You got the last one right. Caleb Williams leading yards per carry. I mean,
I thought I saw that on Twitter.
He has maybe like 25% less carries than the next guy. But still, when it comes to the second most yards on the team for rushing, he is leading the team in yards per carry. Yeah. So that's a really awesome stat there. I would love to do this part again here. I like tricking you because I think a lot of these are close enough. Again, like DJ Moore was like 13 yards off. Roschon Johnson was 1 touchdown more. So these are really close ones. I love to get your opinion on some future ones here.
Good questions, man. I thought I got damn.
Got pretty close there. But
so
all right,
close so far.
What's next here, Tyler? We got, I think, 2-3 more things to kind of go through here. Everything is just baseline facts. We're not going to go over any questions or any crazy things here.
So
Caleb Williams,
yeah. So let's just kind of talk about like real quick what Caleb has done through 13 weeks through Thanksgiving. He has 253 completions on 411 attempts. That's a 61% completion percentage. 2,600 yards for Caleb. So his yardage is being bumped up the last few weeks since the last time we talked to you guys. So great for Caleb. 5 interceptions. He is, he's been on a interception less streak, which is great for Caleb. 59 rushes for 378 yards. He's the second leading rusher for a quarterback right now. And then, Bears passing record right now is Eric Kramer, 3,800 yards. Eric Kramer, actually, I work at the Chicago Sports Network. He chimes in a lot and does a lot of Zoom interviews with us. And we always talk about, Bears passing time. Really nice guy. He talks about Caleb a lot, and he actually wants Caleb to beat his record. It's what he kind of talked about.
I bet he does. Well, how many touchdowns does he have so far, Tyler?
Ooh,
I'm not sure if I heard that out of you.
Did I skip over the touchdowns?
You might have.
I did because I scrolled and it skipped right over. 14 touchdowns on the season so far.
14 touchdowns on the season.
14 touchdowns, yeah.
Which is, I guess he was going to have 17 touchdowns by the end of the season, and you guess he was going to have 16. He's already really close there. So he might be over.
He's going to go over
doing it for us.
I would love it. I would love
that too. I would love that too. But yes, second leading rusher on the team, 59 rushes for 398 yards. That's an awesome stat. I think that's something that even from Justin we saw a lot, but he is really using it with his legs while throwing it. And then I just put the Eric Kramer stat there just so we have an idea on what the goal is, right?
Yeah.
If you want the big record, if you want that big franchise record and who you think is going to be the best out of historically for the Bears, it's going to be to beat that Eric Kramer record. And he is still... I think he's 1,200 yards away from that. So he's going to need some pretty crazy games here, but it's still possible. It's still somewhat possible. So there's that. Let's go over the Bear schedule. We're just gonna name off the rest of the games here. Usually we go 3 games at a time, but we're coming up pretty near the end here.
Toward the end of the season, man. It's already beginning of December, pretty much.
And these are some pretty awesome games. So week 14, we get San Francisco at a 3:25 game. That's an away game. We play in San Francisco. And then we get our first Monday Night Football game in Minnesota at 7 p.m. on Monday.
Tough game.
That's going to be a tough game.
It's a hard atmosphere to play in.
I love playing in Minnesota. We beat them last year against Josh Jobs. So I think this is one of those games that I saw. I think we take 2 wins here. I think we finished with 6 wins. That was my guess. I think Minnesota Monday Night Football is one of those wins that we get. Okay. So that would be a really good one. And what else we got here, Tyler? I'm really excited for week 17.
Yeah, week 16 we talked about, week 16 we got Detroit at their home in Detroit. At our home. I forgot about that. Yeah, because we just played, Thanksgiving. So Detroit on our home turf at Soldier Field in week 16. Can be a tough matchup again, but if the Bears end up being sneaky, they could get a win. That I'm going to be another greedy Bears fan, but they could get a win there. We saw them almost win on their home turf. But obviously, they have a bad record on Thanksgiving. The Detroit has for the last 5 years. And then we have back-to-back home games. So we got Seattle the week after in week 17. That's going to be a Thursday night football game. Seattle is looking for a playoff, berth, so that might be a tough game for the Bears. I could see Seattle getting the win there. But then week 18, which I'm going to have the pleasure of being there. Week 18, it's going to be January 4th or January 5th at up north and Lambeau. Bears against Packers. I'm going to be there with a few buddies. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting game, man. Going to Lambeau Field for the first time. Even Bears understand how historic that building is, and I haven't got to see it myself yet. But week 17, I'm really excited for that game. I think that's another game that the Bulls can pull off a win. Thursday Night Football at home versus Seattle. That is the last home game of the season. Yes, so we do finish off the year in probably it's going to be a freezing cold temperature.
It's the day after Christmas. It's 26, I believe. Yep.
All right. Yeah. And that's a pretty good end of the year schedule here. It's looking pretty tough. We got 3 more division opponents. I like the way this schedule could look because, again, it's going to give us better draft pick capital if we do end up losing some of these games. But there's also 2 easy games here. And I'm not going to even count out San Francisco. I think San Francisco's been pretty under the weather lately. I think if Thomas Brown can really match up to the prowess of Shanahan, then we can definitely cap off a win in that week as well. But
I think next week's going to be it's the perfect time to play San Francisco next week, especially when they're not doing well. Purdy's been hurt. That team's been a little rocky. Nick Bosa's been hurt as well. But obviously, they'll probably be back for that game, Bosa and Purdy. I think this could be a win for the Bears. And, like you said, playing in Minnesota could be another win for the Bears back-to-back weeks. We'll just see what happens, though. But I'm being greedy. Bears have, obviously, the last few weeks have shown me that they can win. Coaching didn't get them that win, but I could see them getting these wins, man.
I can see that as well. And so those are that's the Bears schedule. It looks pretty good. It's still a bit tough, but I think at the end of the year, I am not worried. I'm not in a position where I'm worried about these wins or losses. I'm worried about, again, can Caleb reach any more milestones by the time the season is done? And what other coaches will look to him that we'll be playing against?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here's the last part of the podcast here. We hate to see you guys go, but we're going to mention a couple Bears fun facts here. I'll go ahead and say the first one, and you can say the next couple if you want. Yeah. Bears are 4-8 this season while outscoring opponents. That's bad. That sucks. That's really bad.
That sucks. It's bad. That's the worst. Bad. That's bad.
We're below 500. We're, I think, at .250. That's bad. This is not the way you want things to look. But what else you got here, Tyler, for fun facts? Are they fun? I hope so.
The next one's a fun fact because this is a great fact. The Bears are number one or first in red zone defense, so that's great for the Bears. That was a stat we were bad in the last few years, so great for the Bears to be number one in red zone defense. And then the last one for you, man. Since 1940, the Bears are 101, 26, and 2 in games where the offense doesn't turn the ball over and the defense does. So when the defense dominates, on the other hand, the offense as well, we have a really good record. 4 losses of that record have come that season because of bad coaching.
Yes.
So
bad, dude. Bad.
It sucks to say because of bad coaching. You know what I mean? It's got but we'll get into our podcast next week about kind of previewing the Bears-Niners game. I think we're going to aim for next Wednesday. We're going to try to do it. But looking into the future of the Bears, especially toward the tail end of the season, new head coach Thomas Brown's going to be coming in. It's going to be a different culture shift for us. Thomas Brown knows what to do with this offense. He might know what to do to connect these players too. I think he's going to rely off the other coaching in the next 5 weeks to help him make the right decisions. I feel like Eberflus was stubborn and only wanted to do what he wanted to do. Clearly, he challenged the ball 5 times or calls 5 times and didn't even win a single one. I saw the call yesterday, he charged and called, and I was like, okay, you deserve to get fired, man. It wasn't even 2 steps and the ball came out, and he thought it was a 3-step with an incompletion. But this is going to be an interesting, I'm not saying this is a great time for this to happen for the Bears, but we have a week and a half to figure this out, man. This is one of the best times for it to happen, if anything. So there was rumors 2 weeks ago, if the Bears lost on Thanksgiving, we'll fire a head coach within that weekend, and it happened the day after. It did happen.
And something else we didn't mention, in case you didn't hear it, but that is the first time in Bears history.
First time in Bears
coaches,
history.
Right? Offensive coordinator got fired mid-year. Coach got fired mid-year. It's the first time. So I'm seeing a lot of changes here. And one thing that I watched this morning, as Stephen A. Smith was talking about it, we brought in Kevin Warren to instill a new culture in the general manager's room, in the operations room. He is someone that came in to kind of change things up. And the way I heard it happen was that McCaskey is the one who really preaches the idea of not changing the identity midseason, keeping the coach, keeping everything clean, start fresh. Kevin Warren, it sounds like he was the one that gave in the call, because Flus did have one last interview this morning. He did talk to the media.
Hey, I saw
this morning.
The Bears scheduled him to talk to the media, said, okay, all right, thanks for talking, Matt. And then, peace, you're not our head coach anymore. That's stubborn.
It sounds a lot like that came from Kevin Warren. I think that's where I'm looking at here. I think Kevin Warren was like, screw the way that everyone's doing things here and not firing the coach. This coach is generationally bad. I saw a tweet from like Reebok yesterday. Reebok was spraying Eberflus hate. Like he was like they're all posting memes. Man. That's bad. That's bad. The fact that my feed isn't just sports teams talking shit about Eberflus. I'm seeing people's betting pages talk about you. Like that's bad at that point. And so I know he couldn't take another snap as coach. And I see Kevin Warren definitely was the one that probably made that decision.
Yeah. But new culture, week and a half to figure this out. I'm really excited to see what happens with the Bears. Obviously, they're looking for a new head coach starting next season. Not sure if Thomas Brown's going to be the guy, but I do think this is a fun time to see what's going to happen with the Bears. And we have the pieces, man. We have the pieces. The receivers are set. Offensive line's shaky at times. Defense looks okay, except for the big explosive plays that we give, last minute and stuff like that. Rush defense looks bad. But these are things that only take a little bit of tweaking. Looking at the team 2 years ago, man, we had no wide receivers at all.
Yeah.
Didn't even have DJ Moore 2 years ago. I don't even remember who our top wide receiver was off the top of my head. But look at how this team has shifted in 2 years. The pieces are there, man, and that's all we need.
And we got to be thankful for Thomas Brown, because without Thomas Brown, Flus would probably still have his job, or Shane Waldron would be coach. So I think Thomas Brown has definitely come into a position where he knows where he belongs next season, and he probably thinks that he deserves to be the Bears coach, and he could prove it. He could prove it. If the Bears can knock off some wins here, then I'd be very happy with his position, and I would say that he is going to be on the top there with Ben Johnson. But let's just see how this offseason goes. For now, let's worry about what the next few weeks look like. A lot of division games, a lot of games for us to watch. And Tyler's going to be there at that last Lambeau game. So
it'll be exciting.
We would love for you to take some photos and then share on the podcast that last week there so we can give you some kind of final thoughts on how the Bears season went.
Yeah.
Show us some photos, show some videos. Maybe you throwing your beer at a Packer fan or something. I'd love to see that.
Get kicked out of Lambeau, never be allowed back. And I say, guess what? I don't want to come back either way.
Screw you. I'm out of here.
I'm a Bears fan. Screw you. Yeah, but
that's the dream.
That's my dream. Get kicked
out of Lambeau. He's going to rep for us.
I will. But thank you guys so much for watching. Like we said, we're sorry we couldn't come to you guys a few weeks ago. Our schedules just unfortunately didn't line up. The days I had to work, he was off. The days he was working, I was. It didn't line up. But whenever we can get to you guys and talk about the previous games and stuff like that, we're gonna get to talk to you guys. Especially when we saw the head coach got fired, we were like, we need to get on today. Obviously, Thanksgiving week we're a little bit more lenient on time, not working as much, but we're happy to get to talk about Eberflus being fired, talk about the last few weeks with you. Next week, we'll dive into the it'll be a shorter podcast, probably about 30, 40 minutes. We'll figure out how it goes, but talk about Bears-Niners, previewing that game. And like we said, we appreciate all the comments, the likes, subscribers as well. You guys can always shoot us a text or shoot us a message, about what you guys have comments. So we love to, respond to comments. Peter had a bunch of things today. We appreciate you guys, giving us, your insight on what the Bears should do. We're Bears fans, man. We been even through the the thick and thin, the losses, that block field goal. I'm still a Bears fan. I'm always going to be a Bears fan. I'm never going to rock
still with staying tough.
That's what it is, man. So thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend. Spend time with family, friends, get some relaxing in. And then we'll be back next week talking about the Bears-Niners. Dan, any comments before you get off?
Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Peter, for coming in today. He's been really clutch with asking us some awesome questions.
We appreciate it, man. Thanks,
Peter. And Christmas has come early, so appreciate those around you because everyone is cheering for the firing of Matt Eberflus. So Christmas has officially come early.
Yeah.
And it's snowing here in Chicago. If anyone's in Chicago, it's a bit snowy here in the downtown area.
It's snowing outside. Oh, my gosh.
It's snowing.
A little snow, yeah. All right, cool, man.
Yeah, thanks for everything, guys.
Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend. And as always, bear down.
Bear down, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.